Welcome and hello. This is a video exercise in HEC ResSim. And in this exercise, I'm going to be discussing release allocation. There was already a lesson on release allocation, so now we're going to do an exercise and bring those concepts to life. All right, so what I have on the screen is HEC ResSim. I'm going to go ahead. I'm in the watershed setup module here. I'm going to go ahead and start the project by creating a watershed file, new watershed. And then we'll give the watershed a name. I'm going to call mine video 11. And then you can add a description if you like. Select the location on your on the network or your local drive where you want that watershed directory to be created. And then select the units and then select the time zone. If your time zone isn't in this default list of US time zones, you can select international and then have a much longer list. But I'm just going to go with Pacific. All right, apply. Okay. 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 All right, the watershed's been created and we're ready to get to work. Let me go ahead and start by zooming in a little bit and then clicking the stream alignment tool, holding down control, and then sketching out a stream alignment on the screen and then letting go of control before my last click and then a single left click to finish off that alignment. I'm going to call it stream 1. Now I'm going to create a computation point by clicking the computation point tool here on the bottom and then holding down control and single left click on that stream alignment. I'll call it CP1. Now I'm going to add my reservoir by clicking the reservoir tool on the left tool panel, holding down control on the upstream end of the reservoir pool location. I'll hold down control and then click and then let go of control and then another click. So I'll call this reservoir 1. And then let's add one more computation point at the downstream end, which will be right here, CP4. Next, let's go ahead and add a configuration. So I'll go configuration, new, config 1. This will help facilitate building our network. Go ahead and select the time step of 1 hour, except the user's manual said this isn't actually used for ResSim, so it's not too important for this exercise. And click OK. All right, file and save watershed. We're ready to switch over to the reservoir network module. All right, here we need to create a network first. So we'll go network, new, and then I'm going to select config 1. That will bring in our reservoir from the previous step that we already sketched out. And then we'll give our network a name, network 1. All right. Next, to connect the network, let's select that reach tool here on the left, and then hold down control and click the upstream junction. Let go of control and then select the downstream junction. That reach name is fine. This exercise isn't about reaches per se. Let's do that. All right. Looks good. Network, save. Okay, what I want to do in this exercise is about release allocation. So I'm going to add some inflow to this upstream junction and then release it through the dam face, through different outlets, using the 3 different types of release allocation options that ResSim offers. Okay, so to begin, let's go ahead and create our inflows, and then we'll come back and modify the reservoir appropriately to demonstrate the purpose of this exercise. I'm going to go ahead and click on the junction tool here on the left, and then right click on the CP1 junction. This is our upstream junction. Edit junction properties. Then I'm going to click on the local inflow tab, and then I'll just name the inflow at CP1. We'll give it a factor of 1.0. Apply. So that means it's not multiplying by anything. It's just the multiplicative identity property. Okay. All right. So it's got its little circle around it, which means it's got some inflow associated with it. Let's go ahead and create that time series data set for the inflow. So I'm going to go up to Tools, HEC DSS View. Then I'm going to create a new DSS file. The default location is right here in my watershed directory, so that's fine. I'll just call it time series data. call it whatever you want, create. Okay, so the file's been created. Now what I want to do is create flows for an entire month, and we're going to use a 1 hour time step. So I'm going to go up to data entry, and I'm going to go manual time series. There's other ways to add data, like importing it through Excel or a few other options, but I'm going to go manual time entry. Let's use the month of May 2024. So my start time here is going to be, the date is going to be 01 May 2024, the first hour of the month. And then the units is going to be CFS because we're dealing with flow. Up above, I also need to populate the path name parts, which will generate our full path name right here. So I'm just going to be generic and say river, and then location, and then flow. E is the units, or the time interval, and then the F is sort of a user description label, which I'm going to say is 1,000 arrow 20,000. So what I plan to do here with the time series is start it at 1,000 CFS, and then after a short period of time, ramp it up to 20,000 CFS, and then it would level off at 20,000 CFS for the remainder of the month. To create that using the automatic generation tool, I'm going to just automatically generate flows of 1,000 CFS for the entire month, and then I'll come back and add the 20,000 values and then the ramp up between 1,000 and 20,000. So hang tight here. I'll tell you what I'm doing. So the end date is going to be the end of the month. That's 31 May 2024, and 2,400 hours is the last hour of the month. And then the fill value will be 1,000. Okay. So if I tab off of that, I'll click generate, and here are my hourly flows of 1,000 for the entire month of May 2024. Okay, so let's ramp up that flow from 1,000 to 20,000 over the course of, say, 10 days, 20 days. Let's do 20 days. So that would start on about May 5th and then end on about May 25th. So I'm going to come out all the way down to May 25th. Doesn't matter where. How about the first hour of the day? Right here. And I'm going to type in 20,000, enter. Okay, so now what I want to do is come back to May 5th. Let's start right here. And I'm going to highlight by holding down shift, and then just, you can arrow down, but I got a long ways to go. So I'm going to hold down the page down button until I get to the 25th. And I went a little too far. I'm looking for that 20,000 CFS value. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to right click, fill, and then I'm going to linear fill. So what that does is it looks at the first value highlighted and the last value highlighted, and all the intermediate values highlighted. It just updates with linear interpolation between those two endpoint values. So if I click OK, sure enough, it did that, and we can see the results here. It looks like it's changing by about 40 CFS every hour. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is just populate 20,000 for the remainder of the month. So I'm going to just do it the same way by highlighting, then going to the bottom of the month, and then right click, fill, and this will be repeat fill. So it's just going to take the first value and then copy that down for all the highlighted cells. All right, so we can check what that looks like if I click the plot button. Perfect, that's what I wanted, 1,000, and then it ramps up to 20,000, and then constant 20,000 for May 2024. All right, so we can save that, and we have this ready to go for once we create our alternative. So let's put that on pause and then return to define our reservoir. All right, so we're back here in the reservoir network module, and I'm going to select the reservoir, edit reservoir properties. The first thing I like to do is just call the dam. Okay, that looks better. And so I'm going to click on pool. This is where I define the reservoir geometry. Okay, so I'm pasting in some numbers here. The reservoir has a base elevation of 1,350 and a top of dam elevation of 1,500 with a max storage of 50,000 acre feet. So I'll click apply, and then my plots show up here on the right. And now I'm going to click on dam, and the top elevation we know is 1,500. and then I'll just make up a top length. We're not going to be spilling anyway. Then now I need to add some outlet structures. So I'm going to go right click and then add controlled outlet. What I'm going to do is rename this outlet and I'm going to call it outlet A. Okay. And then I'm going to add a second controlled outlet and I'm going to rename that to outlet B. And I'm going to create a third outlet, controlled outlet, and rename that one to outlet C. Okay, so we got three outlets, A, B, and C. I'm going to make them identical in their max capacity versus elevation curve. Okay, so I'm pasting in the properties of outlet A, and then B, and then C. So what I mean by properties is as the water in the reservoir pool increases, so does the maximum capacity. And I will be leaving all of these outlets at just one gate. So it's not super complicated. We got three outlets. It could be a lot more outlets. It could be a power plant. It could be outlet groups and so on. But for the sake of just demonstrating the release allocation, I think this is a good starting point. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click apply and then head over to the operations tab. Operations new. I'm going to create an operation set called operation set 1. And I'm going to use the default zones here and not be creative at all. I'm just going to use a constant elevation for the top of the zone for all year long. So I'll click apply. 1500 is my flood control, top of zone. Conservation, I'll say is 1480 and then apply. And then the inactive zone will be 1350. Apply. Okay, so these are my zones here. And then what I want to do is come over to this release allocation tab. And this is where I'm going to be modifying the release allocation. However, for my first alternative, I just want to leave the release allocation untouched. So when I say that, I mean, I just want to create a base case. And then after that, I'll create trials to demonstrate the different types of the release allocation, which will be sequential, balance, and step. Okay, so let me turn that off though for now, and then we'll create an alternative, a simulation, run that simulation, and then we'll be back here when we look at the trials. So I'll apply, okay, and then alternative edit. Here I'm going to go alternative new. I'll call this base case based on network 1, okay. The time step will be 1 hour, and then I'll leave all the other settings just by default. In the operations tab, I'll select the operation set 1. In the look back tab, I'm going to set the initial elevation of the pool. That'll be the guide curve elevation of 1480. And then I'm going to set the initial release from each of the outlet groups. So from the controlled outlet A, I'll say 333, 333, and 333. 0.333, whatever. All right, so that's balance basically. And let's go ahead and say save. Okay. And then save the network. Now over in the simulation tab, or module, I'm sorry, let me go ahead and create a simulation. It'll be simulation 1. And remember, this is for the month of May. That's what our time series was defined at. So we'll do the same thing when setting up the start and end date times of our simulation. So we'll say 01 May 2024, and then we will start that at the second hour. And then the look back period will just be the first hour of the month. And then the end date will be the last day of the month. All right, that looks good. And then we'll select our base case alternative and okay. So our network loaded in to the screen here. That looks good. And let's go ahead and run our base case. And wait a second. Okay, I think I forgot to assign the inflows. I am getting in a bad habit of doing that. Okay, I'm going to open up DSS View and just manually copy that that time series data to where where ResSim is looking for it. Okay, so here is our time series data set, and it needs to get copied over to RSS directory, simulation, and then right here, simulation.dss. Okay, that could probably be easier. Okay, so let's go ahead and edit the run. Alternative editor, time series, navigate to that. Yeah, it's not reading this. I need to reference it in here, here, set path name. Okay, uh, I am pretty sure this will work. Okay, and go. All right, so the simulation ran and worked. Let's go ahead and look at the results. This was just the base case. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click plot. And what we see on the screen here is pretty boring, actually. What we have is a water surface elevation at 1480, and that holds the same for the entire month because that is the target elevation. That's the guide curve elevation. And then down on the bottom here, we have a plot of the inflow starting at 1,000, ramping up to 20,000, and then holding at 20,000. And believe it or not, that is the same curve as the outflow. So that explains the constant elevation and the constant storage in the reservoir for the entire month. What may be a little bit more interesting and what we're going to be focusing on when looking at results for this exercise is right-click on the reservoir and then click on Plot Releases. What we see here is a similar plot. We're seeing just the release, which was like the bottom plot of that previous plot window I had brought to screen, but now we're seeing the breakdown between the three outlets. So what we have here is a release from outlet A. It starts at 333 and a third, and then it ramps up to what would probably be 6,666.666, and so on. And if I click on outlet B, it's the exact same, and outlet C is the exact same. And then over here is the dam, since there's no overtopping. So yeah, it's kind of hard to see all three colors, but that's because they're on top of each other. But that's the last time that will happen because we're going to implement some release allocation rules, which will make things a little bit more interesting. Okay, so let's do that. Let's head back to our simulation module and then right click on base case. I'm going to create a new trial based on that base case alternative. I'm going to name this first trial sequential A, B, C. So click OK. And then I'm going to right click, edit run. I'm going to click on reservoirs. And then I'm going to click on operations tab, release allocation. And then I'm going to select this radio button here for release allocation strategy. We already saw balance. That was why I created the base case so we could see just what balance was. But now if I select the release allocation strategy, it allows us to change the release between outlets A, B, and C based on balance, sequential, or stepped. So this trial is about sequential. So I'll click sequential. And what it does is it basically allows us to say we want all the water released from A first, and then B, and then C. So once A reaches its capacity based on that water surface elevation, start releasing from B. And once B starts, hits its capacity, start releasing from C. So we can change these, of course, if we just arrow up or down, but A, B, and C is the order that I want. So let's go with that. I'll click apply, OK, and then OK here. And then let's right click compute. So that ran, cool. And I'm going to uncheck the base case results. So I'm only seeing the results here for trial one, the sequential A, B, and C. And I'm going to right click and then I'm going to select plot releases. And then what we have on the screen is pretty cool. So the release began for outlet A at 1,000 and it continued until the inflow increased, and it increased as far as it could, which looks like about 8,655. And right at this point here, which looks like it's the beginning of day 13, that's when the outlet B here, trying to click it, there it is, outlet B started releasing. And then once outlet B could no longer release any more water based on that guide curve elevation, then outlet C started releasing, and that's in blue here. So the sum of these three equals that 20,000 release, and the water elevation in the reservoir pool would maintain its guide curve elevation at 1480. And we can confirm that just by looking at the main plot that we typically look at, just right across like that. All right, so let's go ahead and create another trial, which demonstrates how the balanced release allocation works. So I'm going to right click on our base case alternative and then say new trial. I'm going to name this one balanced, and then I'm going to say 631. Okay, you'll see what that means in just a moment. Okay, let's go ahead and edit, and then reservoirs, and then the operations tab, and then the release allocation sub-tab. I'm going to click release allocation strategy, and then let's see, I have to click on the dam here, and then here are my three outlets, A, B, and C. So right now it's just equal balance, 1, 1, and 1. You could make it 10, 10, and 10, 5, 5, and 5. If these are all equal numbers, then it doesn't have to sum to a certain number. It's just it's normalized. So if I, for instance, put 8 here, 811 means 80% out of outlet 1. But what I said in the label was 631. So 60%, 30%, and 10%. So in that, right when the simulation starts, when we have 1000 CFS for the inflow for the first few days there, then we should expect 600, 300, and 100 until the inflow increases, in which case, and when that happens, the release from these outlets A, B, and C should continue to increase with in the same proportion as these numbers are here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click apply. Okay. Something we should probably also do just to be safe is to change the look back to what we think it should be, which will be 600 to start, 300 to start, and 100 to start. Okay, I don't think I did that for trial one, but no big deal. Save, and then okay. Let me go ahead and compute, and then close. I'm gonna uncheck that, click OK, and now let's check out the releases. All right, so this is balanced 60, 30, 10, or 631. We're at the very beginning here. If I zoom in on the first few days, we see 600 CFS from outlet A, 300 CFS from outlet B, 100 CFS from outlet C. So I'm going to right click to zoom out. And then what happens is as that total inflow increases from 1,000 to 20,000, these lines are increasing in the release at that same proportion of 6, 3, and 1. Early in day 19, outlet A reaches its maximum of 86.57, it looks like. And at that point, the slope on the curve for the flow through outlet B and C both increase. And it looks like outlet B still has a little bit of release capacity here. So I could have changed the numbers a little bit, but if outlet B had hit its maximum just a little bit higher, we would probably see yet another slope change in this outlet C line. All right, so let's go back and add one final trial here, which would demonstrate the stepped release allocation. I'm going to go right click, new trial, and I'm going to call this stepped, and then OK. Stepped is sort of like a mix between balanced and sequential. We'll see a little bit of both behaviors in the stepped, and it gives the water operator a little bit more flexibility in how to manage those release allocations. Edit run reservoirs. Okay, and then we'll go operations tab, release allocation sub tab. Again, click this radio button for release allocation strategy, and then select the dam. Now, instead of balanced or sequential, we'll select stepped. And one important thing to do is also select release capacity or percent release capacity here from the table units. And now we have a table of data starting with 100, 100, 100, which means all three reservoirs will be releasing 100% of their capacity at a certain point. And then say, for instance, I want outlet A to be releasing 100% of its capacity first. So this is kind of like saying sequentially A is first. And then between outlets B and C, we could say it starts at 0, and then both increase to, say, 20% of the release capacity. And then if there's more water than can possibly be released with 100% release capacity through A and then 20% through B and C, then we'll release 100% through B and then hold C at 20% and then see how that looks. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click apply and then OK. And then OK here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit compute. It ran. And then let's right click and plot releases. Okay, very cool. So what we see here is just like the sequential Outlet A releases 100, the full 1,000, and then it increases until its max capacity. At that point, outlets B and C, see, I believe, yeah. So B and C are actually sharing this line for, let's see, May 13th through the 16th as they ramp up to their 20% release capacity. At that point, outlet C just holds steady while outlet B in red here continues to release at what is the same slope here until it's releasing 100% of its capacity. And it looks like 20% capacity C needs to increase a little bit further until it's satisfying all 20,000 CFS of water going through this reservoir. All the while, the water surface elevation in the reservoir is maintaining its guide curve elevation, as we can see in this plot here. So anyway, that was an exercise showing how the release allocations can work. Both there are the sequential, balanced, and stepped methodologies here in HEC ResSim.